I know I'm good talent.
Exactly.
If you care about your radio station, you want to make money, and that's a business, then forget about your personal problems, keep it aside. I will make money for you.
Exactly.
It's a professional thing. But that's what happened for most times. Okay, so what I did was, I said, okay, this is not going to work. There was another radio station out of Princeton University, which was at the same time at that station. But the Princeton radio station was an FM, while this was an AM station. The reach was farther away. It was a C-class FM station that today will not be able to get anyone won't get that station because of the laws in our country. They've clamped down.
Okay.
But Princeton being Princeton, they were lucky to get it as a non-commercial station. Otherwise, most stations with that power are commercial.
Commercial stations.
So the Princeton University station, which is WPRB 103.3 FM, ran a show called Awaaz. It was an Indian show, and that was running for 10 years. Okay, before I came to the US. So what happened is that show was closing down because whoever was interested in doing it graduated, and no one was willing to take it on in the student body because only students run that. And there was no Indian student willing to take that show. And before that slot, there was another Indian slot for Indian classical music, which today is on. So they've been on forever. So the slot after that was called Awaaz. So I called Princeton University and I said, listen, can I get that time now? I'm willing to run that show. They said, no, we'll have to sell you that time because you're not a student. We'll sell it to you for $200 an hour. So I said, okay, I'll take it. Give me 2 hours. So they said, okay, come down. And it was a 70-mile one-way journey for me where I lived. So every Saturday to go and do my show, I drove 70 miles one way and 70 miles back.
Besides the 200 per hour.
Okay, so now I don't have the money because I was coming out of all of this poverty.
Exactly.
I had no savings, nothing. My wife had $400 in her savings, right? So they said, come down, sign the contract and give us the first week's check. So I said, okay. My wife said she was my first VC. She invested in me and I was to come up with the rest for the month at the end of the month when I started the show. So I had 1 month to figure out where to get that money from. But I had the signing bonus. I gave the money and we left. So now I'm thinking, okay, now what I have a day job. And that day job didn't pay me enough to run our lives. So forget about paying for my radio show, right? It was, like I said, again, entry level, exploited, which is fine. I learned a lot in that job, so I'm not complaining. Great bosses, it was good. So then I started going on the weekends and the evenings after my job, driving to Philadelphia. So it drove to Philadelphia because all the Indian grocery stores were there. Or I would go to Edison, New Jersey, which was a little farther away, where it was Little India. So I would go knocking. So for me, Philly was better because I was more familiar with Philly because I was in the same state. Knock on every grocery store's door saying, listen, I'm Anil Srivatsa. Here's my show. I have a contract to start my show. Awaaz was the name of the show. Look, it had 10 years of branding. I didn't want to kill it. So I just added Anil Ki Awaaz. So my show was called Anil Ki Awaaz. Call me a megalomaniac, but in America, personalities lead shows, not brands.
Yeah.
Like the Howard Stern show,
The
Tom
Howard
Lakers show,
exactly.
You know, even the Ryan Seacrest show, Casey Kasem.
Yeah.
Staying with the culture, I called it Anil Ki Awaaz. So I said, मेरा show का नाम है Anil Ki Awaaz. आप इसमें advertise करोगे कि नहीं?
What did they say?
Everyone was shutting doors on me except 4 people, and I needed 4, and they all cut me a check without hearing what my show was about, what I did, just fake. They gave me, and I had the lowest rate for them because I was not trying to make money off it. I just wanted to cover the cost of the airtime, not even my petrol or whatever my expenses were. So the 4 of them gave me a $200 check each. That made my down payment. Then came showtime. For the first time, Anil Ki Awaaz went on air on 103.3. I think it was March 8th on Women's Day.
No.
Very lucky. People wonder why I love women so much. Well, only a man can love a woman as much. Yeah, and then, March 8th, 1997, Anil Ki Awaaz was born, and after that there was no looking back. I ran that show for 10 years. I did my thesis, it worked for my thesis. I graduated, my 6-month-old daughter was at my graduation. I don't know what I did, but I think I did something right. It became popular with the advertising. I got mainstream advertising, I got people like United Airlines, State Farm Insurance. I mean, American companies advertising with me. Even today, I kid you not, because my email was anil@indiaradio.com because indiaradio.com was my website.
Okay.
Right? Because I had registered the site then and I was running an online radio station parallelly.
Wow.
Oh, with that?
With indiaradio.com. And that was a 24/7 radio station online. So my shows would go live online as well.
Super cool.
Okay, you're thinking about doing all of this now?
Now?
I did this in 1997.
Kids,
Gotta
sorry.
wake up, man.
Okay, so I had all these advertisers and I started making money. So there was this another friend of mine and I he's still a friend of mine. I don't want to mention names. He was a little jealous. So he started his own radio show in his own little town, which my radio show covered as well. Because he said, oh, this guy is becoming so popular, so why don't I do the same thing? Fair enough. If competition can get better product for people, then more power to competition. It never scared me because I had the confidence in what I do. He made a comment to one of my other friends, "Kya radio to karta hai na?" Because he had a lot of money.
Oh.
He was an insurance agent, so he made a lot of money with commissions and premiums. Kya kar lega ye? Kya ghar kharidega kya? Radio karke. So to me that was a challenge because if I'm going to buy a house, I'm going to put my down payment down from the money I made in radio, not from my job. And I did.
Very, very inspiring, man.
Very inspiring.
That
Very
house
inspiring.
I still have, and my children are going to live in it starting next year. The same house. Okay?
Polite applause.
Polite
to that.
applause to that.
Because they just went to college in that state,
Oh.
and they're 6 miles away from that house
Oh wow.
at Rutgers University. So anyway, I started making money. It was a nice side income. So I couldn't do it legally, right? So I set up a company. I called it Vatsa Communications. It was a full-fledged company of which I was the employee. It was an entity on its own. So I hired myself and I got myself a part-time H1. So when I was doing this show, I had a restaurant that was advertising with me called The Taste of India. Again, I don't want to mention names, but the owner of that was very intrigued with what I do, and he said, hey, listen, why don't we get together and buy an FM station?
Okay.
So
Let's just get one.
Let's let's buy a
we
radio
buy
station.
chickens every day. Let's get a radio station.
yeah. So I said, listen, I don't have the status to work. I'm on an H1 with this television company, Medical
Right.
Detectives.
Right.
So I have and I didn't know better about the laws at that time. I was still green then. Yeah, I'm not very business savvy, frankly. That's really what my undoing is. So he said, let's do it. I said, good. I made out the business plans because he had no clue. I made out all the business plans. And then the next thing I know, he got together with somebody else.
Oh.
He bought the radio station in his name and cut me out of it totally. And at that point, I was out of status because I'd quit my job from the medical detective thing.
Because you thought that this is going to work
This is
out.
going to work
Exactly.
out, right?
And then because I was out of status, my child, who was still 6 months old, or less actually, still 3 months at that time, was out of status. So I had to send them back to India. My wife Dipali and Kavya were sent back till I got my together, okay? And
Tough time.
so then I put myself in that space and I said, I'm never going to let this happen again. No one's going to decide
Your
my fate anymore.
exactly.
So then I started this company and got my own H1. So nobody could now fire me and say, I'll deport you, I'll complain
Exactly.
and have you deported, nothing. And that's where all my Anil Ki Awaaz
Thing.
was done through Vatsa Communications.
Wow.
Srivatsa, Vatsa. And to date, my email is vatsacom. That started there. So Vatsa Communications began, and that's how I would run my radio show. Now, all the money I made in radio show, I paid my taxes like any other corporation. I did all, because my day job was my day job, which ran my home.
Right.
This ran the radio station. I invested after that. I put all the money I got and I invested in new CDs. So there was this one listener of mine, they were moving and they had 600 CDs. And it was all old Hindi songs. It was the new ones. In those days, the 90s were the new ones, right? Late 90s, mid 90s.
According to a lot of musicians, the best decade.
Like the best decade.
Oh, that's the one that people play now as retro.
Exactly. Today as well.
Okay, so she said, listen, I'm leaving. Would you like to buy my collection? And it was for pennies on the dollar. The money I made, I invested in buying those CDs. Otherwise, you know what I would do for music? I would borrow people who had music in tapes. Every night before my show, I would cue the tape to the song so that I could just insert and it would play. Because for me on air, having dead air was a kiss of death. I just couldn't handle it. It was OCD. So everything had to be just then. When the CDs happened, I said, damn, I don't need to play tapes anymore.
Exactly.
It's there because I couldn't afford CDs. So then the CDs came into my collection, and now I'm like 600 CDs. I wanted to take the show to the next level. Earlier what happened was they would call me beforehand, make the requests, and I would prepare the requests because it wasn't a live call-in show.
Oh, it was a recording.
It was a live show.
But
No, it was a live show.
Okay.
Just no call-ins.
Oh.
But I had limited collection, so I didn't know how to satisfy everybody's music needs. Everyone had this need, 4 hours, right?
Exactly.
So then I created a voice answering machine where people would leave their
A request.
Request.
in their voice.
Okay.
So I would take that audio
And
and
put it-
actually play it like it was a real call.
Oh, does it-
because the station wouldn't allow me to play calls.
Oh, that's unique.
So it sounded live, everything was live.
It's called fudging it.
It's called Jugaadpanti.
It's called
Yes.
being creative.
Yeah, exactly. It's called being creative.
But anyway, so the requests happened. Now I didn't have all the collection, so I tied up with a local music store.
Okay.
Okay.
I said, listen, I'll give you free plugs. Get me all the music I need.
What was the name of the music store? Was it Indian as well?
It was Indian. Yeah,
It was
yeah,
Indian.
it was all Indian. This is all Indian.
It's starting to seem to me like US is like a mini India, man.
Well, that place there.
All Indians are there.
It's New Jersey.
Who's there?
Indian restaurants.
It's New Jersey.
It's New Jersey.
It's Gujarat annex. India's 31st state. Okay, so I would get my music like that. Now there's suddenly 600 CDs. I had my own collection. I didn't have to depend on anybody. Then I started buying the new CDs. Now I didn't have to start buying the new CDs for too long because my show became so popular. The new movie releases
They
would
just
send me
you
CDs.
send you the CDs.
Because the new movie guys were the guys who ran the movie.
Right.
To make those movies popular, they would get the CDs, so they would give that to me. So it didn't come directly to me from the music labels.
No,
It came from the local movie operator, Shashi Patel. I remember him. He was
Shashi?
my biggest.
Shashi Patel.
I don't know where he is now. I hope you're
Watching
alive
this
and well,
somewhere.
man.
Yeah.
But he was my biggest supporter, and he needed me the most.
So it was like you scratch
It was-
mine, I'll scratch
No, it
yours.
was a good symbiotic relationship. It was nice. Whatever money he paid me, I would invest in CDs. I would invest in equipment. So, coming forward today, when I started Radiowalla was started with the same equipment I bought for Anil ki Awaaz.
Oh wow.
It still is there in my studio today.
It's the same-
and
it's
it's
the
still
same
being used. Same equipment, same board, same
things
instant replay.
Lasts
Are
for
timeless.
life. Exactly.
No,
not
it's
everything
more-
updates, man.
It's more about emotion.
Exactly. It's more
For all
about
you people
emotion.
who are like into the dude, I'm waiting for September 12th for the new iPhone to drop. You don't need to always
Because
buy
see,
the new stuff.
my life was Anil ki Awaaz. I expressed myself through Anil ki Awaaz. My children were born live on air on Anil ki Awaaz. My listeners knew me intimately because of Anil ki Awaaz. My social life, my wajood, my junoon, my pehchan was all Anil ki Awaaz. To me, it was it. It was my first baby. Okay, and I took care of my listeners equally well because to me they mattered most, not my advertisers.
Exactly.
So the advertisers would come to me and say, listen, can you say this about my product? Because there were two kinds of advertising. What you call RJ mentions today
Exactly.
was what I used to do there as my endorsement,
Okay.
my personal endorsement. So my personal endorsement could not be bought.
Because you do it
Because my
it's
listeners
personal.
trusted me.
exactly.
But if you want to buy the airtime and say whatever you want, it's your thing.
So there are two.
There are two.
There's a mention and there's the ad.
There is the ad.
So the mention was my endorsement. So if I liked the movie, especially Shashi Patel and I had a very love-hate relationship because he would call me for first day first show so that I could review it
Okay.
on air. And if I liked it, I'd say I like it. If I don't like it, I'd say here's the problem, here's the thing. I don't think you should go waste your money.
So he was like, why are you saying that?
So he's like, hey, come on, man, I'm paying you. I said, you're paying me to put your ad, not my. You're not
Exactly,
buying
not
me.
my thoughts.
If you want to buy my thoughts, you can't afford it.
Exactly.
We don't lie.
We don't lie.
As presenters, we're supposed to not lie.
Exactly.
That's what we should do.
That's the old school, but not now.
Nah, exactly. Very true. But
So-
there are few people who are still like
More power to them. I hope they grow.
Some people.
people.
Okay, so there was this time, and this is a particularly interesting incident. 9/11 happened, and United Airlines was one of my advertisers at that time, during that time. And I was running the show hand to mouth because, like I said, I never saved up money. It would go back into investing into the equipment that I needed. Then what happened was I started to buy airtime, just like I bought in Princeton, in other radio stations in other cities where Indian concentrations were,
Okay.
at the same time, so
And
that I
you
could
syndicate.
simulcast.
Okay. You can syndicate your shows.
Now, to be simulcasting, I had to be in one place, which
Exactly.
means I had to build my own broadcast station in my basement of my house, the house that I bought with the radio money,
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Same one.
Same one.
same one, and I built it up in my basement, and I would broadcast from there, which means I had to embrace technology. So what I would do is, since I had an online radio station running from my basement, I had hired a streaming server at that time. It
Okay.
was Real Networks. That was the only one at those days. I would then use the streaming server, and I would set up all my radio stations with the encoder and decoder in the PC,
Okay.
so that they could all receive my stream.
Okay.
All the local radio station had to do was put up the fader
Fader
of
up.
that board, of that
Of
PC,
that- of
which
that
was
PC.
connected to that fader.
Okay. That's it.
That's all they had to do. And everything was automated, and I was running it single-handedly around the country, including DTH platforms there,
Wow.
through those radio stations.
And what year was that?
Well, from 97 to 2006, so 9.5.
9.5.
9.5 years.
Okay, so in fact, I also broadcast. Again, technology became my friend because technology is the only way to give more power to your creativity.
Exactly.
You can't be tech phobic and be creative.
Exactly.
Because you're limiting the audience of your creativity.
Especially in these days where internet is accessible, it's cheap.
Exactly.
Technology is reliable for broadcast. I mean, you
So
have
what
to
I
be
did,
tech-friendly.
so what I did was I could control my entire broadcast station from my lap.
Wow.
So because I then moved on to another job, and those jobs took me traveling a lot. which means I had to travel out of the country over the weekend.
Okay.
Internal travel, I could come back for the show and then travel during the week. But then I had to go away. So I had to get away of keeping in touch with my studio and still being able to broadcast no matter where in the world I was. And I found that to do. In those days, I don't know, you've heard of TeamViewer?
Yeah.
Where you can remotely log into
Exactly.
somebody's computer?
I haven't years.
I have.
Okay, so in those days, there was this website called gotomypc.com.
Okay.
Okay.
So I was subscribing to that. So through that, I could get into my studio and control all my computers in my studio.
Wow.
One played all the ads, one played all the music. And my laptop had the music collection with. So wherever in the world I was, I could play music from that point.
Cool.
So then I've done my radio show from the Great Wall of China. I've done the radio show from a transatlantic flight on Lufthansa.
Okay.
They had Wi-Fi in those days.
Oh.
This is 2003, 2004, available on flight.
Okay.
So I would subscribe to $30 for the duration of the flight, and I would co-op my passenger with me to be co-host with me because
Oh wow.
Whoever that might be.
Lucky people.
no, it was just fun. The
Ah,
point was to have fun.
Fun. Exactly.
There was nothing scripted about it. Today, even if you say ooh on any FM station, edit.
Everything has
gotta
to be
be
perfect
perfect.
in plastic.
Yes.
I'll tell you why this culture in this radio scenario in India is everyone who's done it there. This is all coming from the West. They became like this. Talk radio was never like this, but the music radio stations are so freaking tight.
Very packed.
Yeah, no hair can go here or there. It's got to be.
Very.
Brief. It's too brief actually.
It should be perfect.
So what happened was, they came and taught these people the same thing,
And they learn the same thing.
and they learned the same garbage. And now they're caught in their own problem. Radio's got to be free. It's allowed. And if you give it to the people like that, they will embrace it like that.
Exactly.
Because that's more close to how we are in real life.
Exactly.
We don't have
And I think radio is supposed to be more real.
And there's a reason why the government is more afraid of radio, because it's more impactful.
And it's got the more reach.
You can create revolutions on radio. TV don't do that, which is why they have more control. Anywhere in the world, radio has more control than TV. But that said, I'm not here to diss the Indian scenario. They're doing well, God bless them. I don't have to be a part of it if it's not on my terms, because I know how to make money. If they want me to make money for you, then do it my way. When 9/11 happened, the first thing that happened, all my advertisers vanished, because at that point, my radio advertising came from mainstream advertisers, including United Airlines, and they pulled the ads overnight. Now what was happening was I was running my show hand to mouth. That means I had enough money left to run one more month. This is 2001?
Around that time.
Yeah, in 2001, I came out of almost life-threatening disease, meningitis. So a lot of things was going wrong at that time. Now, my first baby was going to die because I didn't have the money to sustain it. So I went on air and I said, listen guys, this is the situation. I even created a very, very, quite comedic
Okay.
promo
About this thing.
with a medley of all the songs of begging. Dollar nahi to dinar chalega. The whole thing is that ki bhaiya sabse bada rupaiya. So it was basically I was begging my listeners to contribute to me. So I literally crowdfunded my radio station, my show, Anil Ki Awaaz. I told them, I said, I'm under threat. If you like what I'm doing, support me. If you don't, then I get the message. I will leave gracefully. Within 2 months, I collected $20,000.
That's
That
cool.
gave me enough runway to let that whole thing pass and then start again. And I still have a list of all of those people who contribute. I made an Excel sheet
Wow.
because it was open for anyone to audit. Then I handed over that check on air to the station manager. I said, here's the advance. And I kept on air. So to me, my listeners were always number one, even today. But what I used to do with Anil Ki Awaaz is every year I would have a Maha picnic
It's like a meet and greet.
for all my listeners. It was free for all of them. 1,000 people would show up with their families. We would have it in a park bigger than this.
Wow.
Okay, I would invite the local MLAs, the local reps and the local senators, the local fire chief, the local mayors, the local police.
Wow.
They would all come there. It was a community gathering. All of it was funded by the local businesses. I used to have a chef on my show. I had a cooking section on my show because
On radio?
On radio, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was called Pet Puja. And the chef his name was Panna Lal Sharma. I hope he's well and alive. He used to be Indira Gandhi's personal chef at home.
Oh.
Wow.
Wow.
So when she was killed, he fled, claiming persecution.
Okay.
As a refugee, he came to America.
Okay.
So he was the chef on my show. And he had some really fantastic stories to tell us
Of
about
course.
what happened in the house of Indira
Exactly.
Gandhi. Okay?
So it was a very spicy show.
Inside stuff, man.
It was fun.
A
So
spicy
what
cooking
what
show.
would do during this picnic, he would be cooking for everybody. So we had a buffet meal.
Wow.
All the material of that food came from the local grocery stores who advertised me as their contribution. The local franchisee of Maaza drinks would give us the Maaza stuff.
Wow.
So the drinks were free. The rice came free. The dals came free, the masalas came free, and one restaurant would give their kitchen for free. So Pannalal, we called him Panditji, he was a Kashmiri Pandit.
Okay.
So Panditji could come and cook. And then there was this picnic where we had a live DJ over there. So it was a fun all day.
And that too, just through radio.
Anil Ki Awaaz, my
Anil Ki
listeners.
Awaaz.
And how it
I
should be like,
and I
local,
never promoted
interactive.
it anywhere else except on my show. And I would do live broadcasts from different Indian melas in Philly or wherever they would call me. So I had a setup to do that, do live remotes. It's a one-man show, dude. And I had one assistant that would come. She was white, Amy. God bless her. We're still friends, and that's a bond that'll never go away. And all of that equipment I still have. And Radiowalla was born because of those things. I mean, we've come a long way after that as
Exactly.
well. So, and I'd always told myself that if I came back to India, I would come back to run a private FM station. I said that when I left.
Okay.
I thought it would be in 10 years, but it turned out 16. It's okay.